Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the press, welcome to Azimio Center. This afternoon we have a statement on the situation in Mount Kenya region, which is going to be read by Her Excellency Madam Martha Karua. We have got several political parties present here today, including NARC Kenya. We have also the Jubilee Party. You have got OPA Party. You have also got Usawa Party represented here. And of course we have got DAP and Roots and Reform Party of Kenya and ODM, of course. But all this is part of the Azimio coalition. So the statement is going to be read, as I've said, by Madam Martha Karua. Karibu, Madam.
Thank you. Here is the statement. Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition Party has held a meeting to reflect on what is clearly becoming the policy of the Kenya Kwanza regime to profile Mount Kenya region for political and economic domination. The meeting took note of the desire of the people of Mount Kenya to have a healthy political environment like other Kenyans. Unfortunately, this desire is being thwarted by the KK regime, and it must stop. Whereas the Constitution under Article 37 gives the people of Kenya the right to peacefully assemble, demonstrate, picket, and present petitions to public authorities, the actions of this illegitimate regime indicate a determination to deny the same to the people of Mount Kenya. We saw this during the questioning of Minor Jenga at the DCI on the 25th of May this year, and the subsequent court appearance in Nakuru. Minor's treatment laid bare the determination of the regime to weaponize state agencies to harass and intimidate Mount Kenya leaders. We are seeing the profiling of Mount Kenya youth as Mongiki, which amounts to an attempt by the regime to create an artificial crisis to justify violence against innocent youth from the mountain. It is our position that profiling of Mount Kenya youth will not solve the problems facing this regime. It will only derail the healing process. It will equally not help the Mount Kenya youth overcome the many challenges driving them into despair. We must remind the people of Kenya the violence that was meted out on Kenyans, and particularly the Kikuyu nation, in 1992, 1997, and 2007-2008, which was started and sustained by senior government officials, some of whom are serving in this illegitimate regime. Those who faced ICC charges over the 2007-2008 violence must be reminded that killing witnesses will not make them become exonerated of those crimes. Further, we wish to remind the people of Mount Kenya that the attempt to target, isolate, and finish established leaders and political parties of the region has happened before with grim consequences. Those who are old enough, when power changed hands in 1978, will recall that Kikuyu leaders and their businesses and those in the public sector became immediate targets. The community witnessed a massive effort to cut down and humiliate its leaders, like the late James Gishuru, Njoroge Mongai, Bio Koinange, Waroro Kanja, Bernard Hinga, who was a commissioner of police, and Mwai Kibaki. Immediately, Jomo Kenyatta left the stage. Mwai Kibaki was to later become the most transformational leader the nation has ever known. He was seriously undermined and humiliated. The government claimed to be conducting surveillance of subversive activities and that its agents had infiltrated the organizations responsible for the same. This claim, like today's claim about the resurgence of Mungiki, is but an excuse to start harassing and suppressing any political activity or reorganization in the mountain region. Then as now, the state-sponsored political attack dogs to ensure that Kikuyu leaders who could command national constituency, like Kibaki did at the time, did not rise. That plan has started again with this illegitimate regime. As the regime targets the region's youth and leaders, it has also trained its eyes in taking over or destroying political parties associated with the region. The invasion of the Jubilee Party must be seen in this light. It is an attempt to cripple Mount Kenya leadership and create a crisis of governance of political parties in the region. The verification of our Azimio chairman, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, is also part of this evil scheme to subdue a whole community and region. This is totally unnecessary. Chinua Achebe once said, remarked, when did the rain start beating us? And we are asking, when did the rain start beating the mountain region? It is apparent that the destabilization of Jubilee Party and the destruction of established political leaders of the region is a do-or-die agenda for the KK regime, sponsored by the highest level of the Kenya Kwanza leadership to ensure that Mount Kenya region has no serious political party to challenge anti-Mount Kenya policies that appear to be driving the decisions of this regime. Many of the tax measures contained in the finance bill currently before Parliament are unreasonable and clearly directed not only at the nation but particularly at Mount Kenya businesses. The proposed turnover tax is basically a tax on assets whose primary objective is to impoverish the mamambogas, boda-bodas, and other vulnerable Kenyans struggling to make a living in these difficult economic circumstances. The majority of these businesses, small businesses, are owned largely by men and women of the mountain region. I will invite my colleague, Honorable Kioni, to read the conclusion.
In light of the above, we state as follows. Kenya Kwanza regime must stop profiling Mount Kenya youth as Mugeki or Walefi. We call on critical institutions, among them the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to investigate the conduct of police at DCI offices and raids on minor Jenga's homes, and the statements by government officials on the so-called resurgence of Mogeki sect. Any attempts to profile and vilify the community or to claw back gains made will be resisted very strongly. We will resist KK regime economic policies that are designed to oppress, deprive, or curtail economic opportunities of any of the communities that make up the state known as Kenya. Many of you might recall that back in the 80s and before we had the cooperative movement, it was the first line of attack by the Moi regime. Many from Mount Kenya went under. We now can see another onslaught on the chamas, the merry-go-rounds, another onslaught on those groupings that are quite predominant within Mount Kenya. We will continue monitoring, documenting, and responding to emerging policy and human rights abuses affecting Mount Kenya region and any acts that are outside the rule of law. Kenya Kwanza regime, in its evil design to impoverish the poor people of Mount Kenya, must be reminded that it is not possible to legislate the poor into prosperity by registrating the wealthy out of prosperity. We demand the immediate withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2023 in its entirety. The unwarranted and uncalled for attacks on His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Azimio chairman, must stop. We have said there before, and we want to repeat again, to some of those elected or holding elective positions within Mount Kenya, that in the past we have witnessed the reign of buffoons within Mount Kenya, and especially immediately after the death of President Jomo Kenyatta. We shall not allow this same behavior again within Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is not available for auction. You need to look around for something else to sell. And all forms of political mobilization will be done to counter the re-emergence of these buffoons, and our right of association must be respected across. Remember, Pastor Mackenzie is not being investigated for belonging to the Christian faith, but for what he did, the criminal acts. Our rights of association, our right of association must be respected. I thank you. May I invite Governor Iria to have a few comments?
Thank you very much. We are here because we are concerned and worried about our community. So, and you can see we are with other communities, but there is a concern on what's happening within the community of Kikuyus. And some of us have stood our ground, and you've said that we have to speak out because we can clearly look into the past, we can analyze the recent past, and we can project the planned future. As a community, this is a community which 8 months ago was being celebrated as a central cog for Kenya Kwanza. Our youths were being glorified as the mighty hustlers, and our youths were moving aloud in waves, and the wave resorted to the government that is said to be in place. Our worry is how such celebrated youths can within 6 months turn into thugs. How can hustlers transform from being hustlers within a space of about 6 months into being gangsters into being mandalas, into being mungekis, into being drunkards, into being any other objective which can define them in the negative. That is a question which some of us are asking ourselves, and our leaders, our Kikuyu leaders, are just clapping as we are being demonized. If we don't speak for our youth, then we are condemning our future. Our youth are being targeted because of the future of Kikuyus as a community. The question which comes through is, where has this subject of Mungiki come from? Because no incident has been observed, and you media people have been with us in this nation. What has happened in the last 6 months to justify the statement and the proposition that there is emergence of Mungiki? We want to be told of one singular event in one small village within central Kenya, the border Mount Kenya, which has prompted this debate. Because we belong here, you belong here, we have not had anything, but all it has, suddenly the government, specifically Viruga Chagwa, has announced that there is reemergence of Mungiki. Where has that come from? If it's not a plot to blood, to profile our youth. Gachagua need to realize one thing. This nation owes a debt to Kikuyus for the blood which was shed in the Rift Valley. We lost people, human beings, Kikuyus known by name, working people were buried. They also owe us a debt in the name of our youth who are massacred in between 2004 and 2009. They were killed, and we have information they were even being buried by policemen under the name, under the branding of Mungiki. Which is that offense which made our people be killed? Is it an offense which was supposed to be judged outside the court system? We have a list of people, young men who went missing, and some people seems to be celebrating that today. Between 2004 and 2009, our youth were killed under the guise of Mungiki, and Gachagua said it very clearly that it will happen the way it happened then. That is a threat to our youth. It means that our youth are supposed to be killed. And before they kill, before any drop of blood is spilled in Mount Kenya again, we must be compensated for the blood which we have already lost. It is dear enough, and enough is enough, and no one is going to spill any blood from any of our youngsters, whatever their mistakes, when we are alive. And I want to repeat once more, we are going to take census of the young men that we have lost. Nearly every family in Mount Kenya has a record of a lost son, of a lost daughter, under some funny blooding. We first of all need to be compensated for that before they kill others. I don't know the cost of a son because there is no cost. Losing a son, a Kikuyu son, is priceless. And someone can stand and tell the nation that our youth need to be warned that they face what they faced. We are telling him, come on. We are now mature enough, some of us, we are grown-ups. When they did that, some of us were fairly young. We are now the fathers, the mothers of this community. And if we don't speak out, I don't know who else is meant to speak for us. We cannot expose our sons and daughters. Those who are being called, they are being called hawkers. Those who are being called hustlers. Those who are being called vijana wa mikokoteni. They are now drunkards and they are now Mungiki. We want to tell them it doesn't matter. None of our sons, our daughters is going to serve a death sentence under whoever's rule. And we want to tell Gachagua very clearly, Kenny, I have to finish. I'm speaking now from the community. And what I will say, I will not say tomorrow. Now, the flow. But I want to repeat once more that we are serious. You might think I'm taking time, but I'm talking about our children. If I'm talking about somebody's children, then I am supposed to be stopped. I'm talking about our sons and daughters. And we want to say that whoever is bringing that debate need to kill that debate with immediate effect. That is not a debate which was in this region. Wherever it has come from, Gachagua need to take that debate wherever he took it from, because we don't want to entertain such a debate in this region, and we want to assure our sons and daughters that we have leaders in Mount Kenya who are not going to be compromised, and we shall ensure their security and safety. If one makes a mistake, we have rule of law. If you are a thief goes through a particular legal process, judicial process. Kama umetukanana, but you cannot condemn our youth, put them in a basket, and you say that our youths are mungiki. We are giving a warning against profiling Kikuyu as a community and Kikuyu youths in particular.
A compressed statement from Karo Irungu, Deputy Governor Nyeri one time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mine will be very brief. I think as leaders of Mount Kenya, we are here to call out this illegitimate government in what we are seeing initially to be dictatorial tendencies. We saw and we are seeing how they are continuing to speak. We want to call out this government on especially the finance bill. If you look at the finance bill, for a government that has been saying they have women at the core of their government, you look at clause 17, what our vice captain has said, women groups will now be considered as businesses, attracting a 30% tax. And the story of Mount Kenya, especially those of us who have grown up in Mount Kenya, is that as our fathers were working, our mothers are very involved in chamas and in merry-go-rounds, and they really support the family unit. In fact, if you look at the data in the Ministry of Gender, the Mount Kenya region ranks highest in uptake of the Women Enterprise Fund and the lowest in loan delinquency. And therefore, when you begin to look at these women in the villages as whatever activity they're taking on as business activities, essentially what you're doing is killing that sector. As Mount Kenya leaders, we're also very aware that this regime would like to kill our small businesses. If you go through the finance bill, once again, if you sell chai and mandazi, those small vibandas that we have in the village, and you only sell 1,300 shillings a day, those are 10, 12 cups of tea and mandazi in the village, you will now be paying to this government about 15,000 shillings a year. So ideally, we see a regime that is out to kill our Mount Kenya businesses, that is going for women. I mean, in very mundane and desperate things like trying to charge wigs and weaves and very small desperate measures. Most of those businesses that sell those wigs and do those beauty activity are owned and run by women. So as women of Mount Kenya, we are seeing a regime that is out to cut our businesses, that is out to hurt our activities as women, and therefore we want to call them out at these very early opportunities to tell them we will not stop to say that, and we will not be intimidated to say that for an illegitimate regime, I think you have a lot of guts to do what you're doing. I thank you very much.
Governor Derito.
Thank you very much. Let me say to you a bit in Kikuyu. You know, hitidireaga mwana, okay? No egenda kuria mwana yajagia kuga mwana ucio hiana mburi. Okay? So, in our region there, the hyena does not eat its own child. But when the hyena is tempted to eat its own child, it begins to say that this child is smelling like a goat. There can be no doubt in your minds the reason our young people are being branded mungeke, the reason they are being branded as drunkards is because there is some ill intent on them. And that intention, my colleague Karogo has explained to you, including the little that they earn. So a young person who is doing digital creation, that maybe they are making a website for you, or they are making some promotion on TikTok or Instagram or something like this, will now be paying withholding tax, not at the normal rate of 5%, which others pay as professionals, but these young people will now, if this bill were to be passed, will be paying 15%, 3 times what other professionals do. It must be clear, certainly to all of us, that young people in Mount Kenya are being targeted very, very specifically, both economically and profiled, so that perhaps extrajudicial killings can now resurface. And we want to say to the entire world, and we hope you as communicators help us to tell the whole world, watch out. Honorable Mwathi.
Thank you very much. Let me also join my colleagues and the leaders to also emphasize on the point that I have made about the youth in Mount Kenya. And I want to particularly speak to those youth. That yes, you youth, you are very good. Yes, you said you wake up to go and support a government that you thought was taking you to prosperity. But today, 8 months later, you are now being branded all manner of words. That you are not useful to that government cannot be gainsaid, because it means the government was only using you to get to power. And once they get that power, you then become useless. But I also quickly ask, what is this that they know that they don't need the youth in future? There must be a grand plan. And that grand plan is plan for their basket of votes as they finish our youth. It is time for us, you youth who belong to this community, to stand up to be counted. Say no to this repressive regime. Secondly, let me speak to the members of parliament, because I was there and I'm a former member of parliament for Limuru. And I'm known for having taken a motion in parliament when it was first put on the camera, talking about how our youth were being killed. And I know I received threats then from some people, I don't know whether they were police, saying that I was the next in line. If talking about the youth now will put me next in line, I'm ready. Our members of parliament, speak up for those youth. Our members of parliament, stand by those who voted for you. I had talk yesterday, that they are waiting to be shown the way to vote about the finance bill. And I hasten to add, you decide who among the ones who are telling you to vote for it, yes, and those who on the ground are telling you, maisha ni ngumu, musipige yes, tunyanyaswe. Decide who voted for you. Then you can vote the way you'll vote. But Thursday is the defining moment for you, member of parliament, who wants to put a huge baggage on the people who elected you. And all of us who are out here, including those who are electing or who elected the members should take up upon ourselves to deal with them once they pass that bill. Yes, I thank you.
The party leader, Roots, Professor Wajakoya.
Baba, Honorable Martha Karua, and other party leaders, for me, I'm going to look at this issue in a very critical way because I've been very much involved in the Mungiki issue. I remember in 1997 when I was practicing law in UK, the issue of Mungiki became very apparent, which informed us to find out what we were going to do with that brutal regime of President Moi, when he wanted to castrate all young Kikuyu males of the ages of 13 and 19. When he circled them and killed many of them, and many of them were thrown in Karura Forest, many of them were thrown in Gong Forest. In addition to that, and you'll allow me to speak because I have a very strong history with the Mungiki issue as somebody who led the UN to come into this country. At the same time, Moi was vilifying the young Kikuyu male. He also vilified the Kikuyu women, female, young kids. So I called Koigiro Amwere, who is still alive and who can verify this story. I invited him to come to London with the young Kikuyu males that had come in running away for asylum, and at that particular time, they had been denied asylum. So we had to lobby Kenneth Baker, who was the Prime Minister at that particular time. We had also to lobby Tony Blair and Lord Steele, a great friend of Raila Odinga. By that time, he was Steele of the Liberal Democrats. We went ahead and also included the Scottish National Party and also other political parties to look into the issue of thematic assassinations and killings of the Kikuyu male, of the Kikuyu young male, and depopulating their women. And this history that we are writing down. As a result of that, we lobbied the United Nations Human Rights Commission, of which they sent a special rapporteur, Professor Philip Sons, who came on a fact-finding mission in this country, and then he found out, what he found out was very appalling. He made his report to the United Nations in New York, and then the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Switzerland came up with guidelines on how to treat asylum seekers from this nation, especially of the Kikuyu origin. And that's why we heard for the first time lots of them being given asylum in the UK. I went ahead and joined the then president of Ghana, Jerry Rawlings, whom we convinced to ship out some of these Mungiki leaders. As a result of that, many of them were shipped to Mozambique, one of them being Ndunge Wariungi, who was shipped out with a Portuguese passport. You can find that out from him. And because of thematic and systematic killings, our lives were put in danger, save for James Orengo and Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, who is sitting here, who came in London, made many trips in London to console with us with those particular families that had lost their siblings. I hold the former president accountable for the thematic elimination of the Kikuyu community, something that Gachagua is now repeating. And let me assure you that we are appealing to the British government not on cameras. I am appealing to the British government not on cameras, but we know what you are going to do. To ban those who are involved from stepping foot in Britain and EU, to ban those who are spearheading these semantic and systematic killings of young Kikuyu men and women from setting foot in Britain, in USA. And I can assure you that when I say it, I mean it. And I know what I'm talking about. And with Baba being here, and the other lawyers being here, and other leaders being here, I can assure you for free that we, having been outside the country, knowing the history of what the Kikuyus did for this country, of what the Kikuyus have done in the entire world, of what the Kikuyus have done to open up the economic development of this country, of how much money is brought in this country through Kenyans in the diaspora, many of them who originated from Mungiki, many of them who remained outside, many of them who suffered, and thank God they have settled in UK, they have settled in the United States, and they are bringing money in the country to improve the economy of this country. Yet some MFs are now taking advantage of political ramifications to kill them. Gachagua is just a small man. You may have the barrel of the gun. You may have all the powers. You may have all the police. But when the day of reckoning comes, you'll be alone. We have seen other leaders who are here before who are used to doing that. Biot being one of them. Where is Biot today? Dead and buried 6 feet under the grave. What about people like those ones you know from Mount Kenya? When you take power and power corrupts you and you start eliminating people, you start eliminating people, you start cleansing people, you start ethnicization of one community. How do you think Kenyans are feeling about it? How do you think people in Uganda are feeling about it? How do you think the world is looking you at? Kenya was very peaceful until recently when madness came in after stealing the elections. You want us now to come and work with you? Oh, Professor Wajakoya can just be brought. And for those who are being brought, we know them. Time of reckoning will come. We are here to appeal to this government to leave Maina Njenga alone. Leave Maina Njenga alone, because you are just making a mole out of a mountain. Maina Njenga has played his role. Maina Njenga has paid for his whatever. Why would you just take one man, shoot his wives, kill them, shoot at him, and then now you want to disperse those young men? They're hungry. When you see a lion, don't think it is a lion when you can put your finger in its mouth. Gachagua has just put his mouth, he has just put his finger in young men who are hungry, making Kikuyus to fight Kikuyus. How do you think other tribes in this country are feeling like? How do you think the Luos are looking at them? What about the Luyas and the Masais? Oh, Kikuyus also wameanza kupigana wenyewe kwa wenyewe. Kikuyus are very peaceful people. I have a daughter from that community. I have friends from that community. In the police have been promoted by people from that community. In the last general election, I was financially supported by people from that community. Please give me time. Please. I'm hungry. Give me time, because this is something which is going right inside my soul. We cannot allow this. We shall never allow this. And for you who are here, who are related to members of the Kikuyu community, how do you feel when one man who is using taxes belonging to the Kenyan people, who wants to eliminate the entire society, you kill one Kikuyu, 10 are born every day. Moi tried that. Kill 5, 100 are born. These are like the Jewish people. You cannot eliminate. Muzungus tried and they failed. Thank you very much.
I'm sure we will hear from the DAP party leader, Mheshimiwa Waziri wa Marwa. Yake si mrefu sana. You call back.
Asante sana. Kabla hatujaleta kinara wetu baba aweze kuzungumzia hili jambo, wahenga walisema mbio ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo, na leo tumesikia mbio ya mgambo ikilia Mlima Kenya. Kwa hivyo kuna jambo. Nataka nishukuru sana viongozi wenzangu kutoka Mlima Kenya ambao wamezungumza hapa. Kwetu wanasema ukificha mgonjwa ama ugonjwa utasikia vilio. Nataka niwashukuru sababu wamekuja kusema kuna shida Mlima Kenya. And it's not a secret that the Kenya Kwanza regime came to power through a pack of lies. And in fact, the 8 months we have seen of the Kenya Kwanza regime is a boulevard of broken promises and broken dreams by many Kenyans, including our brothers and sisters from Mount Kenya region. It's not a secret that this illegitimate regime is losing support of the mountain day by day, and they're aware of it. And what they're planning to do, Chinua Achebe once said, when you see a toad jumping in broad daylight, there is something after its life. When you see someone who is supposed to be a president of a country and a symbol of national unity threatening members of parliament, someone who is supposed to be a deputy president, threatening members of parliament and literally blackmailing members of parliament that if you do not do this, you will not get roads or you will not get development in your regions. There is something terribly wrong with what Bwana Ruto na Bwana Gachagua wamesema jana kutoa vitisho kwa wabunge wetu. But we also know that out there in the mountain, because they are aware they have lost support, they are preparing to use very strong arm tactics. And we are talking about a repressive regime that intends to mute the rebellion that is building in the mountain. And how will they do that? They say you give a dog a bad name and you hang it. As they are losing the support of majority of the young people, the boda-bodas, the mamambogas, the threat in the mountain is going to be like the days of Nyayo, the days of Mwakenya. All they needed to do is brand you a Mwakenya and plant something on you, and you'll be arrested. In the mountain, before open dissent is seen, they intend to use the word Mungeki. Brand any young person who might be rebelling against this regime, including the boda-boda, who are feeling the weight of the high cost of petrol. And today they are no longer singing about the hustler who pretended to be one of them and has now abandoned that mamamboga who was on the headlines today. We want to thank you, the media, for calling out William Ruto and his lies, and for exposing the big lie that was using the mamambogas and the boda-bodas and the hustlers to get to power and then forgetting about them. So we want to say this issue of Mungiki is not a Kikuyu issue. It is not a Mount Kenya issue. This is a national issue. It's a Kenyan issue. And we are here to stand in solidarity with the Mount Kenya leadership to say no to the Kenya Kwanza regime and their nefarious scheme of branding the Kikuyu youth Mungiki, of using the Mungiki name to bring repression in the mountain to forestall an open rebellion that is coming. That is what we want to say, and wish to now call our leader to come and address the nation on this matter of vital national importance. Your Excellency, Raila Amolo Odinga.
Thank you. Today was a day for the leadership from Central Kenya, Mount Kenya region, to address an issue of extreme national importance. They say that the more things change, the more they remain the same. I have had occasion to talk about isolation and vilification of the people of the mountain region. And I remember in our days of the youth, during the struggle for independence, the Mau Mau War, there was all the times an announcement in the radio that the Kikuyu, the Meru, na Embu ni watu hatari. Ikiona mmoja akipita, piga ripoti kwa polisi mara moja. That was an announcement which was used to be made on the radio all the times, to try to isolate the people from Mount Kenya who are fighting for their land which had been grabbed by the colonialists. These were Kenyan patriots who fought and paid a very heavy price for liberation of this country. Now it is so unfortunate that in this time and age,
Kenya has now celebrated the 60th year of its independence, that somebody should try to use the very same tactics and methods that were used by the British to try to isolate the youth from this region. There is now an attempt to artificially re-establish Mungiki movement. And I've seen it happen with my own eyes. It's Maina Njenga, merely because he accompanied me to the funeral of our matriarch, Mukamu Kimathi, has since been vilified, been harassed. They have carried out searches all his residences in Nyandarua, in Laikipia, in Nakuru, in Nairobi, planting even some kind of evidence. Somehow they've carried bang, at times they're carrying guns and so on, to try to vilify him and find an excuse to arrest him and to detain him. The young youth who were themselves incensed by this harassment are now being classified as Mungiki. But you have also seen Mr. Gachagua run around all Central Province talking about alcoholism among the youth, drugs, and delinquency, and urging the chiefs and the police and the administration generally to deal firmly with this youth. Now the youth have nothing else to do. The youth are idle, and that's the reason why they resort to alcoholism. The answer to this is to provide a job for this youth. If the youth get something to do meaningfully, they will not be drinking. But they're getting into alcoholism because of lack of anything meaningful to do. You will remember, we had brought a program when we were in government to try to put money into the pocket of this youth. Even the last regime had a program called Kazi Mtaani. Kazi Mtaani actually meaningfully engaged this youth. These people had said that they were going to get this youth engaged in tree planting and so on. They have not done anything. We used to have them cleaning the streets, garbage collection, and helping the community generally. And the youth were happy. They were not drinking. So Mr. Gachagua, a free advice to you, don't vilify these youth. Give them something meaningful to do. Secondly, Mr. Gachagua, you have been bragging all along that you are the sons of Mau Mau. You and your other counterpart called Kimani Ichung'wah. I want to challenge you today, Mr. Gachagua, to tell Kenyans your relationship with our Chief Nderi Gachagua Wang'ombe, who was assassinated by the Mau Mau in 1953 because of his collaboration with the brutal colonial regime. That Gachagua came from Madeira. So we want you to come clean and tell the Kenyans what is your relationship with that Nderi Gachagua Wang'ombe, the collaborator, so that people can then understand. And tell us also, if your father was a Mau Mau, what was his service number in the Mau Mau movement? The same thing with Kimani Ichung'wah. We have said, and I just want to underscore what these leaders from Central Province have said, They have said that they will not tolerate this, and we want to speak on behalf of other Kenyans that we are fully in solidarity with what they have said. We'll stand strongly in solidarity with our people, friends, brothers and sisters from the Central Province. Central Province is very much part and parcel of Kenya, and we will make all the contribution needed to protect these people against harassment by this illegitimate regime. Thank you. Yes.
Jina langu ni Joel Chacha kutoka runinga ya K24 TV, na hapo kesho vuguvugu la 66 litakuwa linaandamana dhidi ya mswada wa fedha mwaka 2023, Finance Bill 2023, na kumekuwa na matumaini haswa licha ya Azimio kuzungumzia tu swala hili, vile vile labda mjitokeze katika streets za hapa Nairobi kuandamana haswa kuzuia Finance Bill kupita. Je, msimamo wenu kama Azimio ikizingatiwa vile vile ulikuwa umesema hivi leo utatangaza mwelekeo wa wale ambao wana bila shaka fuatilia sera zako, labda uweze kueleza haswa mtafanya nini kushinikiza serikali ya Kenya Kwanza ambayo mmesema haisikii maoni yoyote ila maandamano peke yake?
Shukrani sana. Kwanza, kabla sijajibu hiyo swali lako ya mambo ya ile mswada ya fedha, ningependa kukariri kwa muktasari yale ambayo mimi nisema kwa kimombo. Ati sisi kama Azimio la Kenya tunapinga vikali sana ile njama ya kujaribu kunyanyasa vijana wa mkoa wa Kati katika taifa letu. Tumeona njama ikifanywa kujaribu kufanya watu hawa ni watu ni wahalifu, ati ni mungiki na kadhalika. Wengine wanashikwa, kwa mfano Mheshimiwa Maina Njenga amefuatwa kila mara kwa mara tangu wakati ule mwingine ambaye yeye mwenyewe aliandamana na mimi kwenda kwa mazishi ya marehemu Mkami wa Kimathi. Kila amefuatwa, wamefanya msako kwa nyumba vyake kule upande wa Nyandarua, upande wa Laikipia, Nakuru na hata hapa Nairobi. Na ameshikwa, mapelekwa kule mahakamani Nakuru, baadaye akaletwa hapa kwa kikao kikuu cha DCI, baadaye akarudishwa tena kule mahakamani akishindikizwa na mawakili wetu huko. Kitu ya ajabu ni kwamba yule mahakama alipokuwa anatoa uamuzi wake anasema ati bwana Njenga amepigwa marufuku kuongea au kufanya mambo yoyote ambaye hakuna mtu ambaye aliomba yeye juu ya mambo haya. Kwa hivyo yeye mwenyewe anaonyesha kwamba kuna njama, na kwa upande mwingine hata mahakama inasurutishwa na hii serikali kufanya uamuzi kinyume na sheria. Tumesema sisi tutasimama imara nyuma ya wenzetu wa kutoka mkoa wa Kati. Vile vile nimesema bwana Gachagua amekuwa kijigamba kila mara kwa mara ati yeye ni mtoto wa Mau Mau, yeye na bwana Kimani Ichung'wah. Nimesema atueleze kinagaubaga uhusiano wake na yule chief Nderi Gachagua wa Ng'ombe ambaye aliuawa na Mau Mau mwaka wa 1953 kwa sababu yeye mwenyewe alikuwa mshirika wa koloni, alikuwa anashiriki kunyanyasa wa Mau Mau wakati ule. Na tukisema kama baba yake alikuwa Mau Mau, atueleze nambari ya baba yake katika hiyo jeshi la Mau. Hata bwana Kamau Ichung'wah, tunataka kujua uhusiano wenu, kama baba yako alikuwa Mau, alikuwa anafanya wapi, alikuwa shiriki kwa vita wapi, katika msitu gani? Sasa kwa mambo ya mswada ya fedha, sisi kama Azimio tutatoa msimamo wetu kamili siku ya Alhamisi. Siku ya Alhamisi tutatoa taarifa yetu kamili. Tutaeleza Wakenya kinagaubaga msimamo wetu, kwa sababu sisi tunapinga hiyo mswada na ile hatua ambayo tunataka Wakenya wachukue. Hiyo mswada ikiletwa kule kwa vitisho, wakishurutisha bunge kupitisha hiyo mswada, lakini wabunge wetu wote tayari wameambiwa wapinge vikali hiyo mswada. Kama wewe ni mwanaazimio, pinga kabisa. Na wale wabunge ambao wataunga mkono hiyo mswada, nataka wale wapigaji kura wao waweka wao kwenye darubini, ili wajue kwamba wao ni wasaliti wa wananchi wa Kenya. Asanteni sana. Nimesutatoa taarifa.
Maybe just a quick one, just away from the finance bill. The worrying now in counties is lack of funds, and that the government has not released funds from February, some March. What do you think of the willingness of this government to support devolution? And number two, some political parties are complaining not to have received their political parties' funds. Has ODM received the funds, and what do you think is going forward in terms of the democracy in supporting the political parties?
About the funds, I'm told that there was a meeting today between governors and Mr. Gachagua. So I don't want to talk about, but all the times you have condemned the delay by the national government to remit funds to the county government. This government is actually trying to kill devolution, because if they're saying that they inherited an able Kenya, and they were able to pay at least the following month all the dues to the county government. What has happened since that time that we now have these serious problems? I think myself is that there is a deliberate effort to try to take over some of the functions which are being done by the county government. But also, everybody knows that corruption has shot up exponentially since this regime came into power. So we have said ourselves that this regime is not up to what the Kenyans expect. And we are going to tell Kenyans what to do. I've been asked whenever I go, tangaza maandamano, tamaza maandamano. We are putting them on notice. Tutatangaza. Thank you.